Hello and welcome to the session of Decoding Ancient Indian History of 11th class textbook from the NCERTs. So in the previous sessions we got few comments in which people have asked me in order to concise or tell only the gist points from the present textbook. Understand that my point is not to give you the gist for any of the competitive exam. Our point is to make you understand what is exactly the genesis of this book, where each and every point becomes important either for the mains as well as for prelims. This cannot be done only for as a bits kind of thing, where the bits and all the important facts I am giving at the end of the video, but when we are starting I want you also to have your own NCERT textbook when you are listening to this particular video, because in the video I am providing you few cues and an important points to stress on, but that will not actually do away with the concept of understanding the evolution what happens in the ancient Indian history, right? So for that purpose, each video, even if it is taking a little longer time, we are not ready to concise it so as to just give you an information thing, right? Our point is to make you analyze the concepts what is given here so that you can put a proper track when you are writing your mains. And for the prelims also, nowadays the questions do not come directly, so at least you should go with the concept of elimination technique. That is what my point, so that you can at least arrive at the question even if you know a bit about the concept, right? So for that purpose I cannot just provide the facts, type the facts and give it to you as a spoon feeding thing, but the session is going to be an evolution where I will put on into your mind how we have to read this book, as well as to catch the glimpses and use this for our presentation. So coming from the first chapter, we have seen the importance of ancient Indian history, right? In that we have seen how the unity and diversity in India has come, and then the relevance of past to the present. In the second chapter we have seen about the how did the historians, why did they want to write about the ancient India, and that from the colonistic view we have seen, and then the nationalistic approach and their contribution also we have seen in the second chapter. Coming to the third chapter, where I have shown you the five types of sources on which the present historical construction goes on, and later on we went on to learn about the historical sense as well as how constructing the history now not only the material remains coins, inscription, literary sources and foreign accounts becomes important, but why it is so much important about the astrological survey, which will bring about the rationality into the historical studies, right? So this was a brief about the first three chapters. So kindly, if you're listening to our videos for the first time, in which we are going to discuss about the geographical settings, that is fourth chapter, so you can find the above three videos in our playlist. So coming to our chapter, geographical settings. Why is geography important when we are reading about history? Isn't it? Geography should have been the part of geography subject in a separate. But understand that this geography is something that we cannot do away or go far away, right? Just because we do not like Pakistan or we do not like China, it's not like we will take out India from there and put it somewhere else, not to allow the intruders to come into Kashmir. It's not like we will just move away, drift apart into the ocean or something. That doesn't happen, right? That's why they say geography is what made us neighbors, and this is what the God has created and no man can undo it, right? So because of this present geography only, anywhere in the world there will be an evolution of history. If there is no geography, there is no kind of history, because the people would have lived in the isolation, right? Coming to India also, the history of India cannot be understood without the some knowledge of its geography. So now let us see how geography is important to history. So they say history has two eyes. One, the chronology, we are all afraid of, right? So whenever talking about history, all the students keep on saying me they're afraid about the dates they have to remember. But remember that is not the case in UPSC, where usually they do not rely upon the dates and all. But yet, in order to understand the history, it is like the chronology is one eye of the history, whereas the second eye being the geography. Chronology means the timeline, whereas the geography they mean the space, right? So it is the geography which determines this time as well as the chronology of the history. So coming to the important term that we have to learn here is that what do you mean by subcontinent, that is Indian subcontinent that we have mentioned. Remember, Indian subcontinent involves 5 countries, namely India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal as well as Bhutan. But whenever I am referring to India in this present textbook, it means it involves India, Pakistan and some parts of Nepal too, right? We know that Pakistan was separated in the 1947. So whole of ancient as well as medieval India, we were all together, including the Bangladesh, which got liberation from the Pakistan, that is Western Pakistan, in 1971. So all these countries were one and they were called as India or the Bharat Varsha, all this together. So whenever I am referring to normally India in this present context, it means it involves all this and some parts of Nepal, even the foothills of Nepal where we see the birth of our Gautama Buddha. So now let us see how the geographical setting of India it is, right? We all know it is a small revision to added to our geography class, right? So here Indian subcontinent is this part, that subcontinent I mean involving all these 5 countries. It is larger in areas than the Europe without Russia, right? So here today as of in India, it comprises of not 25 states but it is 28 states and the 9 union territories after the Jammu and Kashmir was removed as a state, whereas 2 more union territories have come, that is Jammu and Kashmir as well as Ladakh union territories, right? So this present geography of India, we can imagine it is like sometimes we feel like our own state is a little larger than the European countries, right? But yet whole of India, if you can see, the subcontinent has well defined geographical unit. Well defined here since we have kind of proper borders to say yes, this part of land belongs to us, right? So mostly it is situated in the tropical zone. We know that Tropic of Cancer actually goes through the middle of our country, right? And here the monsoon plays very important role. And you know, monsoon is derived from the Arabic word called as Mausam. So it is in context to the southwest monsoon, through which these Arab traders would come into India and stay here for really long time. In whole of the month that is starting from June to October, they would stay here. Then after the advent of northeastern monsoon, that is from October till January, they would return or retreat to their own countries. This is what actually facilitated the trade contacts, right? They would come in the month of June to October, stay here for really long time. After maybe from June to January, around for 6 months, they would stay in India, take whatever the things they have, contributing to our culture, and we may be contributing or supplying our culture to them. Such type of cultural mingling was happening, and then these traders would go back to their own countries, right? And this monsoon is again important, not only because it allowed the trade and all, but second most important thing is that there was no irrigation during that time. So almost all the agriculture, you know that time India was mainly only agriculture country. So this monsoon played an important role in the agriculture, right? So today what we grow as a kharif crop in North India depended primarily on the southwest monsoons in the ancient India, right? Now we also know about the western disturbances which actually originate in the Central Asian countries or the Mediterranean region, and they bring lot of cold winds into India. But yet our Himalayas stand apart in order to guard our country from this cold Arctic winds, right? but yet through the passes some kind of rain they bring, which is called as western disturbances, and this western disturbances are again important for our wheat cultivation, isn't it? So this all shows about the importance of our southwest monsoon as well as the winter disturbances that we get in the northwestern part of India. So coming to the southern part of India, right, it is particularly coastal areas of Tamil Nadu and all, where we witness the northeast monsoon, right, starting from mid October to around December and continuing up till January. And this particular winds contribute to the rainfall in the Tamil lands, right. So here once the direction of monsoon, that is both of southwestern monsoon as well as the northeastern monsoon was discovered in and around the 1st century AD, right. So the traders sailed with the southwest monsoon from West Asia and the Mediterranean region as well as the Southeast Asia. They returned with the advent of northeastern monsoon westwards, right. So the discovery of monsoon has enabled the India to carry on the trade and establish the cultural contacts with not only West Asia and the Mediterranean areas as well as the Southeast Asia. So in the northern part we see the great Himalayas, right. They do the two jobs. One is that they protect our country from the East Siberian cold winds, right, so that they actually try to play important role in our climate by keeping it warm compared to the other countries. And the second important thing that the Himalayas play is that they shield the country from the foreign invasions to come in from the north, right. But this is not totally foolproof, because this does not totally act as a shield. Like there was, if had India been like that, if this Himalayas acted as a barrier between all the countries, not letting them to come in, then we would have been kind of maybe isolated kind of India, right. So such type of commingling of culture today, what we talk about unity or diversity, wouldn't have happened. This is only because in the northwestern part of our India we see the three mountain ranges, important mountain ranges called as Hindu Kush, Suleiman as well as Kirtar ranges. You can see in the northwestern part of India, right. So in among this ranges we can find the three passes called as, remember it like KGB, KGF. You remember the movie KGF, right. So KGB are nothing but Khyber, Gomal and Bolan passes. These three passes are present on the Kirtar, Suleiman as well as the Hindu Kush mountains. These three passes have led the people to come into India and stay over here for really long time. So people came here not only as the traders or travelers who has intention to travel in the to different places, but also religious monks and many people who wanted to come and settle in India. So as it served as a nest for the people who could come through these three passes and settle here, and this has led to what we call as diversity in India. So this two-way traffic which was happening from India to the Central Asian countries has been going on from the prehistoric time onwards. That is why we see people from like Iran, Afghanistan and Central Asia came into India not just as invaders and immigrants. Even if you can see the Hindu Kush mountains here, the Hindu Kush mountains which are nothing but the westward extension of the Himalayan system, they also did not they did not form like a barrier between the Oxus system which developed in this part to the Oxus. Can you see the name Amur Darya or Sir Darya, the part between them? Today we can relate it to the Uzbekistan, right? So Oxus system developed in this part. So this Hindu Kush mountains did not act as a barrier between the Oxus system as well as the Himalayan system which was present over here. So this passes facilitated trade, cultural contacts between these two countries. So this was a part in the northwestern part of our country where this passes and the ranges have provided the importance for our history. Coming to the next thing, within the Himalayas we can see two valleys. One is the Kashmir valley that we can see here, and as well as the Nepal valley that we see here, right. So these two valleys is surrounded by different kind of mountain ranges. Here we can see different kind of mountain ranges, but yet this same valleys could be reached through different passes. Here we can see like different passes through which we can move towards Kashmir, as well as the people who are living in Kashmir, especially in the winters, because the climate becomes very harsh, they would come to the foothills of the Himalayas to live in. So this kind of facilitated the movement of the people. Same is the case with the Nepal region, where it could be accessed through the Bihar region and the UP and Bihar region. So this led to the economic as well as the cultural interactions between plains and the valley, right. So here above we have seen about the Pamir Plateau, which did not actually even that did not act as a barrier for us to transmit the Buddhism to the adjacent Central Asian countries, right. So this Kashmir and as well as the Nepal has become like a center for cultivation of Sanskrit. So this both the valleys became repository of the largest number of Sanskrit manuscripts whatever are found today are mostly found in the Nepal and the Kashmir region. If this was a situation in the upper parts of the hills of the Himalayan mountains, coming to the foothills of the Himalayas, that is usually we call them as Shivaliks, right. So because this part was very easy for them clearance, because only when there are numerous rivers like Ganga, Yamuna and all, this will form the alluvial soil where the soil will be really hard and it won't be easy for them to clear the forest until they have like iron implements, right. But in the foothills of Himalayas, especially in the western part, if you can see, it was easy to cross the rivers in these areas because they will definitely have a small width, right. That is the reason whenever we can find the earliest routes coming to India were found near the foothills of Himalayas from the west to eastern part and vice versa, right. So naturally, because here there was dispersed kind of forest here, they could easily cut those forests and they can form the earliest agriculture settlements in and around these regions. That is, along the foothills of the Himalayas we could see such type of agriculture lands. So coming to the heart of historical India, right. So it was not in the mountainous regions where we can really find many people living over there or constituted the history, right. It happened in the plain regions, only in the plains, especially the plains which were formed by the Indo-Gangetic divide as well as the Gangetic basin and the Brahmaputra basin. Here we can see all this actually form the basis for our plains regions, because these plains are conducive for people to live in, produce their agriculture. So obviously they would prefer living in the plains regions rather than the hilly areas. So here one important thing to remember is that if we go from west to east, usually our rainfall keeps on increasing, right. Rainfall keeps on increasing. That means that increase of rainfall means that there will be an increase of the vegetation and the forest land, right. So that's why we can see that like annual rainfall it was increasing from 25 to 250 centimeters. In the Indus Valley we can see like rainfall will be around 25 to 37%, whereas in the Western Gangetic we can see the rainfall proceeding from 37 to 60, right. So here, because it will be the forest will be very scarce, so that's why this forest can be cleared by using the stone as well as the copper implements. But as we move towards the east, especially in the middle Gangetic region and the eastern part, the rainfall comes around from 60 to 125 centimeter. So in the Brahmaputra more, if we can go, the rainfall will amount from 125 to 250. That means that the it will be a thick forested area. This thick forested area cannot be cleared by using the stone and copper. Then there will be a need of new metal called as iron in order to clear this type of forest. So here this is very important, as the rainfall keeps on increasing from west to east, so will be the forest area, right? So because this forest area also keeps on increasing, it needs new kind of implements in order to clear this kind of forest. Where the rainfall is less, they can clear it by using the stone and copper, whereas when we are moving towards the east, they need new kind of iron implements, right? So that means that civilization would have started from the west to east only. People also would come from west to east. The people's settlement also started from west to east. It's because the rainfall also increases from west to east. Depending on the forest, we see the movement of people as well as the settlement of the people. So finally we can come to a conclusion saying that the natural resources of the less rainy western areas were utilized first, and the large scale human settlements generally spread from west to east, right? So once this present land was brought under cultivation, Indo-Gangetic plains produced the rich crops and they have supported the successive cultures, obviously, right? So if you can see again the crops, we know that in geography, I hope you would have read about the crops depends on the rain, right? So as we see from especially in the Indus and the western regions, they would have mostly produced wheat and barley, right? Because rice and all needs lot of stagnant water. Here because the rainfall it's already less, so that is the reason they wouldn't have gone with the rice crops and all, right? Coming to the middle and lower Gangetic region, produced rice crops, right? So the Indus and the western Gangetic plains usually produced wheat and barley because of the rainfall and the type of forest which has grown over there, which could be cleared through the stone and copper, right? So but the middle and the lower Gangetic region, because the rainfall actually increased to around 125, they could bring the rice into cultivation, right? Coming to the cultures which has originated, we can see Harappan culture has actually originated and flourished in the northwestern frontier province and Punjab, but the Vedic culture has actually developed in the middle and lower Gangetic regions. Post-Vedic culture has actually developed in the lower Gangetic as well as the Brahmaputra valley, where they could use the iron implements. So here kindly view at the picture properly, you will know that the Indus and the western part, depending on the rainfall and the crops they have taken and the implements they have used, and upon the cultures that have come. Coming to the middle part, also lower Gangetic rainfall and the crops they have used, the stone tools they have used, as well as the Vedic culture has developed here. So this part needs to be remembered about how the geography is actually evolving to the contribution of history that you can see over here, right? So history in the sense why the particular civilization has started in the northwestern region, because they could cut the forest first over in that regions using this type of iron implements, and that is how civilization also moved from west to east in India along with the type of forest and the rainfall, depending on the rainfall. So here in history we can also see if you can see lower Gangetic valley and the northern Bengal came into limelight after the age of Guptas, and finally Brahmaputra valley covering Assam came into prominence only after the coming of medieval times, right? So important powers fought, we know about the Kurukshetra battles, the battles which have taken place usually in the Ganga Yamuna Doab, because this is most coveted and the contested area, because it was very fertile. So whosoever could occupy this present region, they could reap the lot of benefits, where the state or the king would have got so much of money, the economy would have been good if they are occupying such type of Doab region. That's why this region became very important and contested one in the history. So coming to the next important aspect in the contribution of geography to the history is known by knowing the importance of rivers, because these rivers have served as arteries of communication and commerce in the ancient India, because during the pre-industrial time there was nothing called as roads, railways and all which could connect the people. So they would use the rivers as a communication channel for either the trade as well as to travel among the people, right? So interesting thing about rivers we can know is through the Ashokan stone pillars. The people have carried this strong, that very weighted stone pillars through the boat by using the rivers as a communication channel. So this coming rivers played a very important role with the coming of the East India Company, which came till the Britishers came. It was rivers which was standing as an example for the communication within India, but only after the East India Company came they started to establish the railways. So until then it was the rivers which played the role of communication channel. Second thing the rivers does is that they will do the inundation of soil, we all know. So this inundation of soil will add to the fertility of that soil. So this fertility in turn will improve the agriculture, and improvement in the agriculture means there will be an increase in the commerce as well as the economy of the present country, right? So third importance of the rivers is that they used to supply water, drinking water to the different canals. We know that today also we are heavily dependent on the rivers only for our drinking water supply. So earlier also they were the only source through which they could actually get this drinking water. Next important thing we can know through the rivers is that most of the important towns were present on this river confluence only. Example Varanasi, Mathura, such type of important places. Same like today's example, where we choose wherever there is a proper communication or the employment opportunity, there only people will make their presence, because now we will choose such type of another communication. But because we are able to get the pipeline of water to our house wherever it is located. So but that time, because such type of things was not available, people would see where is the nearest river and there only they would come and settle. That's why it led to the growth of many towns in and around these rivers, right? So the very important thing, how this geographical importance of rivers has contributed to our history, is that they not only provided these four benefits, but that sometimes they acted as a political as well as cultural boundaries. How today we make international boundaries and say that this is my place and that belongs to another country, and during the ancient times these rivers were marked as a boundary between the different political as well as cultural boundaries. Now let us see how they have marked these things of political as well as cultural boundaries. So here if you can see, especially in the eastern part of Indian peninsula, there was a country called as Kalinga. Basically it was between the Mahanadi river and the Godavari river. So this was like Mahanadi was marking the northern end of boundary of the Kalinga, and whereas the Godavari was marked as a southern boundary of the Kalinga kingdom. In the same way we can see Godavari forming the northern boundary to the Shatavahana kingdom, and the Krishna was forming as a southern boundary to the Shatavahana kingdom, right? So this two confluence has come into the history very importantly just in the beginning of the Christian era, right? Now coming to the Tamil Nadu, we can see Krishna river which was forming as a northern boundary, and the Kaveri was a southern boundary to the kingdom of Pallavas, right? In the same way Kaveri was forming as a northern boundary to the Chola kingdom, and Vaigai was a southern boundary to the Chola kingdom. So all this shows that how the rivers were forming as a natural boundary to the different political as well as cultural traditions in India. But coming to the western part of the peninsula, we do not find such type what we have seen in the eastern part, such type of clear distinction of regional units depending on the rivers. But yet we can locate somewhat, we can try to approximately locate Maharashtra between the river called as Tapi. The Tapi's old name is called as Daman Ganga. This can be a question, so kindly remember, right? So we can find Maharashtra between Tapi and the Bhima at the south, whereas we can find the Karnataka state situated between the Bhima and the upper regions of Krishna river, right? And we can see the southern boundary being given by the Tungabhadra, right? Now coming back in the below, we can see the Kerala, which is also surrounded by the Malabar coast towards the west. Although this coast came into prominence, it had several ports as well as small kingdoms. Communication between the coast and the adjoining areas of Maharashtra and Karnataka became very difficult because of the presence of Western Ghats in this region, right? So we can see how each one of this area is bounded by the rivers and in some cases by the mountains, and sometimes they are identical with the deltas as well as the plateaus. So all this constitutes a political and administrative units in different ruling dynasties which came into prominence and then fell. So on this account of difficult communication in this vast country and the defensibility of the natural frontiers, it was not easy for any of the ruling class of one region to establish its rule over the other region, right? So in the course of time, each region became started to grow into a distinctive cultural units, and these cultural units have led to own lifestyle of language, right? So but in the north and western India, most of the language is derived from the same kind of Indo-Aryan stock, right? And hence they hold many elements which are in common, right? What is further important almost all over the country is the Sanskrit, right, which came to be cultivated and understood in every part of the country. So it shows that the Vindhyan mountains which were present cutting across the North India and South India did not actually become a boundary between the north and the south, because we find that many of the words which were used in the Dravidian language also been mentioned in the Aryan languages that they have spoken in the northern India, right? So all these different countries, states formed different kind of regional units, and the culture was different, but yet no country or the region had enough kind of natural resources. So this natural resources would have obviously led the people to move to other places and get those metals. So this exploitation of natural resources of the country have an important bearing on the history, right? So in earlier times we also saw about the burnt bricks which were not in much use. So timber houses and palisades were constructed, and they have been found in the Patliputra, the first important capital of India. So we can conclude by saying that how geography is important in order to constitute about the history, and especially we have seen about the northwest, why people have come from the west to east, why did the settlement go from west to east, and how in the Deccan regions how the rivers have formed as a political as well as cultural boundaries. And we have seen about the Aravalli mountains, although they are standing dividing the north and the southern part of the country, still they do not stand as an inseparable barrier that did not allow the people to move from here to there, right? So all this led to the commingling of culture. So when in order to understand the ancient India, it is far more better to have a better understanding of the geography, because as told in the first phrase, when I told that history is nothing but it has two eyes. One, if it is the chronology that we are going to see in the next classes, the another important eyes of history is the geography. So here afterwards, whatever the classes we are going to see, definitely you must have an atlas in your hand, because atlas will make you to have a better remembrance of the places and what's happening everywhere. So kindly make sure that you have your atlas in your next class along with the Ancient India 11th class textbook.